to another exciting episode of Deena and Javen at the Regent Street. What episode is this?
This is episode 11. It's almost been a year.
How long have I been saying that? Since episode 7?
Episode 7. She's like, oh my gosh, it's almost been a year. Which was my favorite moment of our whole experience.
So, no, it really has.
Almost.
Congratulations on a great year.
I know. What a crazy year.
We are closing this crazy year out with some big news.
Huge news.
Ginormous, gigundo news.
Now, if you follow Deena and if you watch ABC4, then you know what we're going to talk about. But we have to talk about it on this show. Deena?
We absolutely do. One of us is pregnant. It's me! Oh my goodness.
Yay.
So right now I'm about 14 and a half weeks pregnant with a little boy. We've already revealed his name. His name is Link.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Named after Link from The Legend of Zelda. Myself and Michael, huge nerds about the game. We've loved it since we were little. It is so special to us, so it was really easy to decide on a name. But can I tell you how surprised I was that it's a boy? My instincts
right, because
are
it was
totally wrong.
Was supposed to be a girl.
Yeah.
Char wanted a girl. Everybody voted.
Yeah.
Thought that it was going to be a girl. Nope.
And see, when I was pregnant with Charlie, I thought the same thing though. I was like, oh, she's here, it's a daughter. I would have bet 100% it was a girl, and I felt the same thing this time. So I'm always wrong. I'm always off.
Always, yeah. We were wrong with River too.
Isn't that weird how that happens? Mm-hmm. And you're so sure, and then the doctor calls and tells you what it is, and it's like, so it took me a minute to wrap my head around it. But you know what? I love being a boy mom. I feel like it's just meant to be. I love playing monster trucks. I love digging in the dirt. Didn't know those things about myself until I had Charlie, but now I just can't imagine it any other way.
Congratulations. It's so awesome. I'm so happy for you and Michael.
I've been sick. I've been so sick. I didn't have this at all with Char. So migraines, throwing up, queasiness.
Migraines, that's crazy.
Yeah, I didn't even know that was a thing, and that's not something that normally happens to me. So, I don't know.
I'm sorry.
Knock on wood that is gonna stop as the second trimester begins, but oh man, this has not been a fun one.
And when is this child due?
May 29th.
May 29th. May 29th. What is the show gonna be like then?
Well, there might be a little bang, or just off camera, but the show will go on.
The show will go on.
Little baby Link,
which is what this episode is about.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, awesome. Congratulations, Deena. We love you. We're excited for you. Okay, so today, as I just mentioned, we want to talk a little bit about performance during the pandemic, how that works, what people are doing, and some of the things that we've seen, how that's going. I've seen a few things lately, and all different ways of bringing performance to people during this time. So one of the things that I saw was a performance of Everyman that was done by students at NYU. One of my students, one of my former students, played the title character Everyman, and it was interesting because it was done. It was a Zoom performance, right? And so all the way since last spring, we've heard of Zoom performances, and people have done different kinds of Zoom performances, and this one was done really well. It was like the little spaces that the actors were acting in were tarot cards. And they had like the name under it, and they moved around on the screen. So I thought that was really cool. And what was very cool about it is that it was a live performance, which was a huge challenge, right? I mean, when you think about if you've been on Zoom at all, sometimes there's lags and all. There's just, you never know exactly what's going to go wrong. But it was fascinating how they had, after all these months of different kinds of Zoom performances, how the Zoom performance is evolving, right? And so, yeah, they did a great job, and I was very impressed with that. And it was live, but of course not a live performance. We're watching a virtual performance.
I haven't seen a Zoom performance.
Yeah, you have.
Was this the first, or have you seen them here and there since the beginning of the pandemic?
I've watched a few, over the few months, that have been put out by big companies, I've watched readings, and most of them are pretty much just like, here's an actor in this Zoom square and here's an actor in this Zoom square. This was the first time that I saw one where they had a whole thing going on where there was a background and these tarot cards were moving around. And these were the spaces that the actors were acting in, But each actor was in a totally different location, acting alone.
That is so cool. Did you talk to your student after and find out, what his experience was like?
Yeah, and he had no idea. It's River Night. River was in our first show.
We love River.
Yeah. So he had no idea what it was going to be like. No idea, because they had rehearsed the songs, but they had never actually acted together.
Wow.
And he didn't know what it was going to look like or anything. So I just thought it was a really cool way to kind of push this technology forward.
It does sound like it will continue to evolve even from there, as we see there's not an end in sight just yet.
Right. So great job, River. I thought you were excellent in every moment. Another way that people are bringing performance to us, I recently saw on the big screen at the Megaplex a filmed stage production of Forgotten Carols, right? Which Adrian Swenson was in, and also our good friend Roger Dunbar. And Adrian is going to be with us later today, and Roger's wife Tamarie is going to be with us today as well. So it's all connected, right? But this was another way. There are a couple of these things going on because Hale is filming their what's the Scrooge show called?
A Christmas Carol?
Christmas Carol.
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
sorry, the blank. Yeah, they're filming that, and it'll be on the big screen, but it'll be a stage performance on the big screen. Yeah, and
well, Forgotten Carols is so known and beloved here in town, and I've heard a lot of buzz about this, about it going to the big screen. And what did you think? What was it like?
They did a great, because one of the things that when you are in theater and the death that is filming a play, right? I mean, it just kills it, right? But they did a great job. It was directed by Christy Summerhays, who is awesome.
I love Christy too.
Yeah, and they did a great job. Like, you felt the emotion, the performances felt very real and genuine. So
did they approach it as more like a movie, like they were making a movie, or did they just nail it technically with translating that story to the screen?
No, they definitely took the time to, they didn't try to pretend they weren't on a stage, but they definitely took the time to say, okay, so this is a different medium. And so they did different things to help us live on the big screen space.
Almost like a hybrid.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Something else we both got to see, Sandra Immersive's Carousel, which they did at Dreamscapes, the pop-up immersive art museum at the Gateway.
Yeah, just saw this the other night. Again, we've seen some Sandra Immersive stuff together, and they took the Dreamscapes space, which changes, here and there, and they added the element of performance, movement, telling a story through it. What did you think?
I think my favorite thing is that they take a space and weave a story based on that space.
Right.
It's really cool. And I had been to Dreamscapes a couple of times. It's been open for over a year, well over a year. And it's so cool to go through anyway. So to go through and follow a storyline was cool. I like how carefully they have thought of everything, 4 in at a time, so you feel like it's a private performance just for you.
Yeah,
There's assigned spots on the floor 1 through 4, so you find your mark to either sit or stand if you want a contact-free experience. And it was cool. There was movement, there was acting, where somebody would come out and they've got dialogue. Other moments were just kind of quiet, and there's one part where you are following along with a character's movement. That was my favorite. I thought it was really cool, totally different, very innovative, and it just feels so good to be out experiencing something. It felt so good to be there.
Yeah, I agree. I enjoyed it so much, and I loved the mix of dance, movement, acting, using that space. You know, the Sonder Immersive, that's kind of what they do. They use different, it's a lot of found-spaced theater. And again, you're right. They make it so if you're worried about COVID, it is very COVID friendly. You're in mask and you are standing in these distant places. There are only 4 audience members in at a time, as Deena said. So you don't even think about that. Like that is taken care of, and you can just sit there and enjoy this story, which is an interesting story by itself. Right?
It is. It was a really cool experience, and I love what Sonder Immersive does. I'm excited to see what Graham does next.
Yeah, I think their next one is the Chocolatier, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Look at them up.
We'll go to that. And I'm dying to talk to Adrian and Tamari. Should we bring them out?
Absolutely. Yeah, this is another. So, we've talked about ways that people have been bringing performance to us, but then, like Sonder, there are live performances that you can see. And of course, one of the best known live performances that you can see right now are at the Hale, and that's where Tamari and Adrian have been performing, and we're excited to talk to them.
We are so excited to have guests joining us for this episode, 2 good friends of ours and amazing performers, Adrian Swenson and Tamari Dunbar, talking about performing during the pandemic, which you two had been able to do. As time has gone on and I haven't been performing, it's making me more and more depressed. I miss it so much. I'm like, I'm not even going to be able to remember how to memorize lines. So you guys have been working recently in rehearsals right now?
I'm in rehearsals right now for Tale of Two Cities at Hale, and we just finished Murder on the Orient Express at Hale.
Yep. Yep. And before that I did Bright Star.
Which you saw.
Which I saw as well, yeah. And Adrian, you, correct me if I'm wrong, you just recently backed into Deena's car.
I did. But 10 minutes ago. Thank you.
You know
I'm so glad we're covering that.
Here's the thing. We're trying this thing during my pregnancy called no stress. So we're just going to compartmentalize that, deal with that when we wrap, okay?
Yeah,
and all right,
but
thanks
I just
for bringing
want
that
to
up,
give
guys.
you the opportunity to practice it.
See?
Yeah.
So.
See how she's
She's
selfless.
still a performer. Still a performer.
Selfless, really.
Amazing. Okay, sorry about that. It was fun. It was fun, right? We had fun. We had fun there for a moment.
Oh, you did. I'm just teasing. I'm just teasing.
Okay, so let's start with, when was Bright Star? Remind me, because I did see it, but it's been a few months now.
Yeah, it opened the last part of June. They opened, and I was already in performance for it. January it opened, and then we were through that whole thing, like so many in the Valley. We're doing a show, getting ready to open a show, and then in March everything just closed down. And so you can imagine the heartbreak and that everyone felt, and are we going to be able to do this again, and that sort of thing. And I honestly didn't think we were going to be coming back anytime soon. And then they approached us. They got to a certain point where the numbers were lower at the time. I know they're totally spiked now, but they were lower at the time. And they worked with the health department and local government officials to put in a safety plan. And then they said, they gave us the green light that we were coming back. So we had to make the decision if we wanted to be a part of it and, move forward.
What went into making that decision for you personally?
Yeah, a lot of it for me was, do I live with someone that is high risk? And I did not. How is my health? I took that into consideration. I'm relatively a healthy person, don't normally get the flu and flu season even. So I thought, well, my health is good. I don't live with anybody high risk, and I looked at their safety plan, saw what they had in place, and felt confident going forward.
There's so much that I want to ask you both about your experience, but one thing that I want to address right away is how you felt during the controversy. There was so much divide, I think, in the performing community with thinking the show must go on and no, we should all stand in solidarity and not be performing right now.
Right.
And I don't know that there's one wrong or right answer, but I would just love to hear what that experience was like. I'm sure that added so much stress trying to perform and dealing with that backlash.
Tamari, I think you were sort of in the thick of it during Bright Star, and Mary Poppins was also did that, Mary Poppins was after, is that right?
Yeah, it just opened about a week after.
I feel like that's when it all sort of, would you guys agree, really came to a head in the Utah theater community?
Yeah.
And I was probably still on my way back from New York at the time, but I mean, I saw it all over social media.
Right.
But what was that like for you?
Yeah, I feel like there's a spectrum of how, you know, people felt about the whole thing, because you had people who were just like, shut it down, like, let's not do anything, like you said, just close it down. And then there was other community theaters at the time thinking, let's just go forward as things as normal. And I feel Hale was a little bit, you know, if we were like here, you know, they were kind of here where they had that safety plan. And I don't think, in hindsight, there probably could have been better ways in which they informed the public of what they were doing, because there was a lot of things that I informed people along the way, and they were like, oh, I didn't realize they were doing that, you know, that was in place or whatever. And so I think there was navigating new waters, trying to figure out, how do we what do we tell the public? How much do we tell the media? How much do we, you know, it was a new precedent, I think. And so, but it got very ugly and hard, I think, on our mental health and reading all of it. Because the funny thing is I don't think the higher ups, like the artistic director and things, are even on social media. So a lot of it felt more directed towards the actors and the crew that were having to read it and get through all the vitriol and figure this out. And so we kind of created our own little bubble together as a cast and crew to kind of be like, okay, let's just keep moving forward through this. And we were open on social media to answer any questions people had, you know, but personally no one approached me about that. But it was I would say probably the hardest thing to go through mental health wise, and just, you know, also I had made my decision, I felt good about it, but sometimes you kind of felt a little bit of shame, because you were like, am I doing the right thing? You know, I don't mean this to be an evil thing or a mean thing by any means, you know, or the wrong thing, you know. So anyway, it was hard.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a shame fest on social media. Have either of you, through your whole performing experience thus far, have you been singled out in any way, either of you? I
haven't been, but I think it's because I was a little after the curve in being cast. After the curve, like the peak of the controversy, I think.
Right.
But I also kind of have an individual circumstance that I got COVID before I did all this. So, like Henry said, it's an individual decision. For me, I had already had it, so I wasn't worried about myself. I was more worried about passing it to people that I love, especially my parents. But my parents got it in June, and I had already been completely isolated from them.
Right.
But so like the people closest to me knew my circumstance, so I think I didn't get too much backlash. But I also like wasn't as public about the fact that I was performing as I usually am, because I was a little scared of backlash. But I get both sides, absolutely, kind of like what you said, Deena. I totally get both sides. I get people wanting to stay away. I get people not wanting to be in productions because it promotes gathering. But I also get, as someone who went to full-time performing in the last, decade, I get that I need work. So I get both sides.
And it is an interesting thing, it's all about your comfort level, like you said, as a performer and just in daily life. We all have different circumstances. Maybe we live with someone high risk, maybe we're at risk. It's all different for everybody. And the comfort level there, what we're okay to go and see as an audience member or do on stage is so individual. So when you were performing during, this time of controversy, how was it different? How did that heighten that experience between you and the audience and what you felt on stage?
I felt like turning that shame into gratitude was very helpful. Just being so grateful, because there's so many artists that were not working for whatever reason, and I felt very fortunate to be on stage and performing. And And I never took that for granted. And every time, you know, walking through those doors at night to go to work, I was just like, I'm so grateful. And I feel like that heart of gratitude really helped the situation and also helped me be empathetic to those who couldn't do this, because I didn't want to be callous or, you know, uppity about it. I wanted to make sure that I was being very sensitive to everyone, because it was, you know, I know how important this is to people. Even if they choose not to perform, that doesn't mean that they don't think it's important. And so I wanted to make that clear, that I think it's important, but I'm choosing to do this, and I feel grateful for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I also felt incredibly grateful, especially having left New York. So many of my friends in New York left and are looking at new careers because of this. And so I feel incredibly grateful that I've still been able to stay afloat, not only artistically but financially, you know, because of these jobs. There are so few jobs. I'm just crazy grateful, but also very respectful of people who feel strongly that they need to stay away and not promote live performance right now.
When I saw Bright Star and then Murder on the Orient Express, one thing that was very apparent was the energy of the audience, both times. I mean, in Bright Star I was more amazed because, you know, I hadn't been to a performance in a while. I'm sitting there, and what is apparent is that the audience was just energized and wanted to be there. And it was clear to me that it's not just performers, theater people like me who need this and for whom this is huge, but the audience. But they wanted to be there. And then when I saw Murder on the Orient Express, it was the same. It was a bigger audience when I saw Murder on the Orient Express, and just the energy was incredible.
Did you feel that? Do you feel a difference during the time of the pandemic?
Yeah, do you want to talk about that?
Well, it's funny that you say that you felt the energy, because I particularly remember that audience being lower energy than some audiences. I was like, oh, Javen's here. So it's sort of hard for me to say. And like, I haven't performed in the space before. Have you performed before Bright Star? Had you performed in the Jewel Box?
Once before.
Did you feel a difference from those? Really?
I did, yeah, definitely. It was one thing I noticed right away, just a heightened expression, especially vocally. Just when they gasped, you know, when they were laughing, it was just like, I don't know, it just felt so heightened. And I could hear, in Bright Star in particular, because there wasn't too many moments in Murder where we had weeping or crying, but in Bright Star, being the emotional show that it is, I could hear people weeping in the audience. And that energy just fed us as performers, as it does, you know. And so I just thought, they need this, like you said, every much as bit or more than we need this. This is a cathartic experience for them right now. They're going through something. They're feeling what they need to feel to take them wherever they need to go during this dark time. And that's what the arts do. It's the beauty of art, is it lifts and it just compels us to be, I don't know, better or work through stuff or whatever, you know.
Absolutely.
So it's beautiful, and it was I would say for me even a spiritual experience on occasion. It just moved me so deeply to feel that energy of them just wanting so much to be there and to give everything to us as performers.
Well, and then wouldn't you say? I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
Wouldn't you say that like? I do think that it is about the arts, but even just being with others, period.
Yes. Experiencing something in a room together.
Yeah, like
that energy.
I don't know if you guys thought about it, but through all of it, I remember counting the weeks that it had been till I had touched another human.
Right.
And I mean, even if these people weren't touching, just like the energy of being around humans, and the arts opens you up so much to connect, like at another level. So it was probably overwhelming even for some people in a good way to connect. A, just by being in a room with people, and B, because especially Bright Star, just opened your heart.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
gives
for
you
sure.
a new appreciation, right? Because you see now that it can be taken away or it can be paused.
Right.
So it feels like you just appreciate it so much more.
Yeah.
So what about during the rehearsal process and performances technically during a pandemic? What were the safety protocols? What was different? Was it easy to rehearse? You know, are you in masks? Are there strict rules? What was that whole thing like?
I laughed because I didn't talk to Tamara the whole rehearsal process because they were so, they were very strict in our rehearsal process for Murder on the Orient about, we had assigned seats that were distanced from one another between scenes because they double cast. Between scenes, we wiped down everything that we touched. Obviously we were masked the whole time, which I thought was interesting because we had to double project.
Right.
Did you notice that?
Yes, double project and double enunciate. And we were all doing, a lot of us were doing dialects.
Yeah.
So it was crazy.
But I just feel like I didn't get to know people as well.
Yeah.
I'm not upset about that because I understand the reason and support the reason that, you know, we weren't as chummy as we normally would have been. It was bizarre though. It was a bizarre process. And I remember being cast and being like, well, we'll see if this really happens. You know what I mean? And it was sort of like every day you went to rehearsal expecting the whole thing to be taken away.
Yeah.
So it was like, I was very shocked when the whole thing went through.
And we made it to the end of our run.
Somehow,
I was like, oh my gosh.
yeah. But it was a very different process.
Yeah, for sure.
I
very
feel like
touch
that
and
would
go.
have been such a worry, you know, waiting to see if it was going to be stopped right when you were about to open or right after that first week.
Yeah.
Was it hard to invest, or did you just think I have to give my all like I would at any other time and just, you know, be optimistic?
Yeah, I felt that. I felt like I wanted to give 100% because it may be the last time, even in rehearsal, that I'm performing for a while. So I just felt like I need to just give it all. And it was so interesting. I think, was it a week before Tech we were able to take our masks off? About a week, or?
You know, just to sort of really get the feel of it.
Yeah, and so they had us like remove our masks. Of course, we have to put them right back on after our scene. So we have them off, and that's the same with the show. Like you put them immediately on. You even have them like, we were on a turntable, and if the train was facing upstage and the audience couldn't see us, we had our mask on. As soon as it started to turn, we took it off, put it in a pocket, or you know, wherever they had us, put the mask. And so it was like last minute, boom, you know. So it's keeping everybody in the crew safe that were backstage. And so, but we had this rehearsal, the very first one. Like I had seen pictures of Adrienne, but I had never met her like in real life, and I'd never seen her without a mask. And so we were like, oh,
that's what you look like.
Yeah, it was incredible, because in your mind's eye, you kind of create the bottom lower of their face, like what you think they look like.
And everybody's mouths were so much smaller than I expected. It was so weird.
It's weird. I was like, and I seriously, the first scene, I was just watching my scene partner's mouth. I was just like, oh, it's my line. Like, I was just like, oh my gosh, like you look so different than what I thought you would look like. And I really feel like the performance level just shot up as well, because again, we're connecting as human beings instead of, you know, half a human being.
I have to say too, I don't know about you, but my costume for the show didn't have any pockets or anything in it, so they put a little pocket into my skirt for my mask.
Oh, that's so nice.
That I could just like right in there. Did they build
They did not. I had a purse, and then off stage, both right and left, they had ditty bags, so we could pop them in there and get on stage and then pick it up. Quick changes, run over, grab it. It just becomes a part of your track, you know?
I definitely walked on stage opening night with my mask on. Like I was like one step and I realized, and I turned right around and I took it off.
Yeah. And then as a matter of fact, the audience loves that. Like they were like, oh, they're wearing masks. You know what I mean? Like humans. Right. It just, I don't know, it made it, again, live theater, right? It just reminded them that we're here, we're together, we're doing this together, and we're not so different, you know, than they are. So yeah, it was incredible. But I would say very stringent in rehearsals, and like we said, everything sanitized. And once we get into the space, protocol. Like even during Tech, we had assigned seating in the theater, our names on the seat. So, and we couldn't intermingle with people. Like we had to stay where we were. So they took it very seriously, and our safety very seriously. And so I felt supported and safe. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They checked temperatures at every rehearsal, at every performance.
Yep.
But yeah,
Yeah.
just grateful every time that we got to walk into that theater.
I know.
And amazed that it was happening. Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible. They also upped the filtration system on the HVAC so that it's like medical grade or something. I mean, it was just incredible, the money they put into trying to keep us as safe as possible, and working with the health department to do that. So
Well, we have to get to wrap this up, but I just wanted to thank both of you for coming and talking to us, and also thank you for performing, for doing what you've done and what you're doing. I personally think it's very important. I was talking to one of my great friends who lives in New York right now, and we were talking about this idea of how important performance is, how important live performance is. And so I just want to thank you for doing that, and thank you for coming and talking with us today.
It was beautiful.
Thanks for
I
having
got
us.
chills. It's so fascinating. Chills.
thank you.
I loved that conversation. That was so fascinating. I feel like we could have talked to them for like another 30 minutes at least.
Absolutely. That just talking about taking off the mask and seeing each other.
That would be so emotional and so much more heightened than even a normal rehearsal. I can't even imagine.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Okay, so we have our bits of beauty to end the show with, and mine is about children.
Nice.
Okay, this is called On Children, and it is so beautiful. It's one of my favorites from before I ever even had Charlie, and I haven't read it in a few years, so okay, listen to this. And a woman who held a babe against her bosom said, "Speak to us of children." And he said, "Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, yet they belong not to you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you. For life goes not backward, nor tarries with yesterday. You are the bows from which your children, as living arrows, are sent forth. The archer seeks the mark upon the path of the infinite, and he bends you with his might that his arrows may go swift and far. Let your bending in the archer's hand be for gladness, for even as he loves the arrow that flies, so he loves also the bow that is stable. So beautiful. That gives me full body chills. I'm surprised I didn't cry.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And the whole time you were reading it, I was thinking about River and Rain as adults, living with them right now as adults because of COVID, and it's so true. They are their own people.
Well, I think about that with Charlie, even at 4.5, because he has his own preferences and temperament and likes what he likes. And all you can do is guide them and help them navigate, introduce them to things. But the minute they come earthside, they are who they are.
Yeah, yeah. It was beautiful. Thank you. That was awesome.
What'd you bring?
Well, okay, so I brought a little bit of Tolstoy today. So mine is a little bit more connected to what we've been talking about. Everybody's been so respectful as we've had this conversation. And, you know, I feel strongly that performance matters, that it's important, that it is, you know, the word that has been used a lot in the last few months is essential. And that's what I believe. I believe that we have to find ways to perform. Where I work at Waterford, you know, we got one show all the way through to the end, performances, nobody got sick. And it was so powerful for the audience to experience that, for the students to perform. The other show got, you know, weeks into performance, and then the new mandate from the governor came down, and so we had to stop our after-school rehearsals. So that one is on hold, but I believe that we need to perform, that it matters. And so, kind of what, you know, what Tamari and Adrian were saying, that it's important to let people choose for themselves. and make their decisions that are wise as they look at the landscape, as they look at what's going on, that they're able to choose for themselves how they will deal with it. And so this is a bit of Tolstoy from War and Peace, where he kind of talks about how the private decision is the more powerful decision rather than the collective decision. So this is 3 little chunks from War and Peace that I've kind of strung together. Most of the people at that time paid no attention to the general progress of events, but were guided only by their private interests. And they were the very people whose activities at that period were most useful. Those who tried to understand the general course of events and to take part in it by self-sacrifice and heroism were the most useless members of society. They saw everything upside down, and all they did for the common good turned out to be useless and foolish. The diplomatists, for example, who imagined they had caused the floods to abate. But all Nikolai did was fruitful, probably just because he refused to allow himself to think that he was doing good to others for virtue's sake. A little Tolstoy laying it down there.
It's perfect.
It is, and I think, I just think he gets that perfectly, just nails it right on the head.
I love it. We'll post both of these online so you can save those. I want to read that again. Save that. So good. And that does it for episode 11. Yeah. So we'll see you guys next month for our Christmas episode, episode 12.
Episode 12.
It's almost been a year.
Almost been a year. See ya.